What is going on, Chase? What's going on, Shay? We got a special one today, Shay. We're going to cover today Spider Noir. Fuck yeah, baby.
Yeah, man. Finally in the live action, too. I know he was in Across the Spider-Verse or one of
Into
those,
the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse, but
Mm-hmm.
finally Nick Cage making a comeback, man.
Making a comeback. The man has never left. Nick Cage never misses. He just doesn't. He's just pure, like, chaotic energy on the screen. You just can't look away when Cage is there. So
He
I'm
was
I'm
throwing
thrilled.
out some chaos for a while, like Drive Angry and Sorcerer's Apprentice, but now
Well,
it
then he was
seems
in the
like he's
one,
back in the game, man. He was doing
dude.
some B-rated shit for a while.
He's been in a lot of independent ones. Like we talked about this a little bit. He was in the one with Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal was like following him around as like his super fan. That did you ever see that? I can't
No,
remember.
I don't think I ever saw that
Oh man,
one.
it was hilarious. It's definitely worth seeing. It's like Pascal plays like his a super fan, following Nick Cage around in his actual life, supposedly, and it's so fucking unhinged, but it's fantastic. Must watch. You could probably catch it on streaming somewhere.
Interesting. I got to check that out. Fun fact: did you know Johnny Depp got his career started from Nicolas Cage? Nick Cage was his best friend, and he couldn't get a break in Hollywood. He was like bartending in L.A., and then when he moved out to L.A., he was like living with Nicolas Cage for a while. Was friends with Nicolas Cage, and Nick Cage like pulled some strings and got him like his first gig.
Yeah, I actually remember this story because I think it was on. Uh, they were roommates when they first moved out to Hollywood, and that's where yeah, I remember this. I can't remember where this came from. It was I think it might have been in the funny enough one of those documentary things about Johnny Depp, which Johnny Depp's just freaking awesome. But yeah, he helped him land his first one in Nightmare on Elm Street, which is crazy because that was Johnny's first ever role, and then the rest is history. This is why I say Nick Cage is a legend, and as you mentioned, we got Spider Noir, we got a glimpse of him in Into the Spider Verse, but obviously, if people are familiar with the comic book, they already are familiar with the character. But what's so interesting about this version of Spider Noir is that it doesn't follow the one that we saw in Into the Spider Verse. So this is a different version of Spider Noir, and it's a different character. This is not Peter Parker that we're dealing with in this one. So episode one finally came out. Been looking forward to this one for a long time, and it delivered, I think. So we're going to start off with a little summary, a recap of what happened in episode one, and then we'll dive in to the more nitty gritty and just have a conversation about what we thought about this episode and things that we noticed. So let's kick this bitch off with the summary. So the episode opens dynamically with Ben Reilly, Nicolas Cage, as the Spider in action, web slinging through a stylized 1930s New York and battling armed gunmen in a jewelry store. Ben's narration establishes his backstory. He was once the city's vigilante hero who swooped in to save the day whenever and wherever the city needed him. His heroism ended prematurely, however, after the death of his love, Ruby Williams. Flashbacks show Ben and Ruby dancing, and Ben is explaining how they were planning on having a spring wedding, but Ben never got to propose with the engagement ring he bought due to her untimely death. Ruby told Ben, now this is interesting, Ruby told Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. And Ben feels like both he and the spider failed Ruby and the city, so Ben retires. Ben hangs up the mask and he returns to ordinary life as a down on his luck private investigator. Ben is in a bar tracking a mark named Jimmy James Addison. He tails him, but chaos ensues. Addison flees. Ben gets hit by a car driven by another party, and the chase leads to the Standard Oil Company. Addison reveals pyrokinesis, so his hands ignite, which pyrokinesis basically he can light himself on fire. Warning his pursuer. Shots are fired, Addison collapses, and flames ignite spilled oil, causing an explosion. The shooter is Patrick Donegal, another private investigator, the party who smacked Ben with his car door when he flew past him. But he was another private investigator, apparently hired by the same client. Donegal reveals the hirer is a man named Winston. Ben and Donegal then team up briefly, and Winston is the same man who hired Ben. The next morning, we see just how much Ben's business is struggling. His secretary, Janet, informs him about past due bills and her lack of salary. Then a client named Mr. Carmody enters the office and hires Ben to investigate his younger wife for suspected infidelity. Mr. Carmody says he overheard his wife planning a meeting with someone and assumes it's infidelity. Ben takes the job for the money despite his distaste for these types of cases. We then meet Ben's friend Robbie. Ben meets Robbie Robertson, played by Lamorne Morris, who is Winston from New Girl, one of the greatest shows ever, a journalist chasing stories about rising monsters and superpowered threats targeting the crime boss, Silvermane, played by Brendan Gleeson, who also played Mad-Eye Moody in Harry Potter, who has a stranglehold on the city since the Spider retired. Robbie knows that Ben's secret identity was the Spider, and he urges him to return as a hero, referencing how Ruby would feel about Ben giving up his responsibility to help the city. Ben resists and refuses to take up his heroic role again, saying his wife has been dead for a long time and that he doesn't care what she would think at this point, clearly deflecting from his true feelings. We also meet a young newsboy/pickpocket named Frankie, who sits outside the phone booths and blocks the line with a coat hanger rig, forcing people to pay him to be able to use the phone booth. He's a dirty little bastard. He will be a reoccurring street-level contact for the rest of the series, I'm sure. At least that's how I see it. Then we get the Cat Hardy surveillance. We then see Ben tailing this woman who we find out a little bit later is Cat Hardy, the famous nightclub singer, to the Radcliffe Hotel. And this woman is the one who Mr. Carmody says that's his wife, and he's claiming that she's being unfaithful in their marriage. So Ben climbs this huge fire escape for a vantage point outside the woman's room to snap some photos of her meetup for her client. And Ben is forced to intervene when the man whom the woman is meeting gets rough with her, and Ben shoots a web to stop the assault, which allows Kat to flee. So how does this all connect to the bigger plot? Well, Ben and Donegal conceive a plan to confront the man who hired them both, i.e. Winston, to see why he would hire them both to find Jimmy and to get more money from him in the process. They want to do a little extortion. Ben confronts Winston and negotiates pay when Winston decides to draw his pistol and threatens to kill Ben, but Janet backs Ben up with a gun of her own pointed at Winston's head. As Winston leaves, Patrick Donegal follows Winston to see who his employer is. And back in the office, we see the photos that were developed of Kat and the man in the hotel room, and they reveal that Kat's companion was none other than the mayor, Alfred Morris. Mr. Carmody returns to Ben's office for updates on his situation, and Ben returns Carmody's money and drops the case to avoid any entanglement with the mayor, telling him, "Your wife was alone all night. There was nothing to worry about. She's a loyal woman. You're a lucky man." We then see Ben and Robbie at the morgue, where Robbie examines Addison's body, bullet wounds only, no burn signs, suggesting his powers were unstable or temporary. And then we get the climax, like the big part of this episode, which is when Ben goes to the alcove, Silvermane's club, where Kat performs. He's trying to find out information from Kat and also to try and blackmail her with the photos/negatives so that he needs extra cash to pay his bills and to pay his secretary. So he goes to try and blackmail the singer at her club, and he's trying to contact Donegal, but Donegal is not answering because he wants to call the plan off. He doesn't want him to get hurt. But Donegal is not answering his phone. He can't be found. Silvermane's men have captured Donegal, and we can see that he has been tortured. Silvermane asks Donegal to tell him where Jimmy Addison is, and Donegal says he doesn't know, or he shot him and he killed him after he used his powers. And Silvermane slits Donegal's throat in return. Donegal then orders his cronies to retrieve Addison's body and then grab the other PI, Ben, to bring him to Silvermane. Then we get Kat's enforcer, Flint Marco, who confronts Ben, and he follows him out of the club as Ben has this conversation with Kat, trying to obviously extort her and say, "You're going to pay me for these negatives so I don't send them to the press." And Ben treks up to the top of a skyscraper that's under construction, where Flint asks Ben to just give him the photo negatives, leading to this crazy fight on the rooftop. Ben gets the better of Flint, but Flint suddenly begins transforming. His fists turn to sand, and he eventually knocks Ben off the roof of the building. Falling to his death, Ben reluctantly uses his web-slinging power to swing himself back up to the top of the tower. Ben and Flint fight some more, as we see that Flint is revealed as Sandman, and Ben knocks him out temporarily. Kat arrives at that moment and begs Ben not to hurt Flint. When Flint comes to, he doesn't even remember what happened to him, like his powers make him black out when he uses it. Ben hands over the negatives to Kat and says these are on the house, and he just walks away. And then at the end, the very end of this episode, the next morning, Kat visits Ben's office as Ben's secretary is quitting. She's like, why the hell did you give her those negatives? We need money. And Kat enters the office and she says that Flint has disappeared and she's hiring Ben to try and find him, pulling Ben even deeper into this web of conspiracies that are ever spreading throughout the city's streets. So that is episode 1. And there's a lot to unpack there because there is actually a lot that happened in this first episode. And just the fact that we get this is so fucking cool to me because he's like a little side character that pops up in Into the Spider-Verse, and Nick Cage was voicing him in the movie. So of course everyone flips out. It's Nick Cage and he's playing a noir spider. And like the whole idea of that is so fucking cool. A noir detective Spider-Man kind of reminds me of like a Batman, honestly, like the modern Batman movie, where it's more detective than he is doing the heroic stuff. So I find it really interesting. But like, I'm going to talk quickly about the idea that they did this in both black and white and in true hue. They give you 2 different options for color or black and white. It's like, what do you think of them offering 2 versions of this show? And like, which version did you choose to watch for your first go around?
Yeah, it was really cool. I think this is the first time in a really long time we've gotten something like that where you can watch things in black and white and color. I chose black and white actually because I think it's kind of refreshing with the modern era we have with everything with 4K TVs and everything's, looks like it's jumping off the screen nowadays with the detail. But this really took you the black and white, kind of like a refreshing stage. Like made me even think about when my grandfather would watch like old TV shows like The Munster or those gangster movies and stuff like The Outsiders or like Al Capone and all that stuff. It did have a bit of like a Sin City vibe, but not as dark, more lighthearted. I think the coolest scene in the black and white for me, because it really put me in that era, like it made you feel like you were in a Great Gatsby era when they were in the, like, I call it the Sinatra room, like the dance hall and Ruby was singing to everybody that was in there.
You mean the
Cat,
alcove?
Cat was, yeah. Yeah. And then of course, they cut that guy's throat in the basement down there. But yeah, it really, it was cool. It really gave you that 20s vibe. I haven't watched it in color yet. I'm going to go back in color and watch it, but I heard in color is really fucking cool. Yeah, so I got to check that out. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I watched it like you. I watched black and white first because to me it's noir, so I feel like that style of entertainment deserves to be watched in black and white. It just really adds to the drama and the depth of it. But I had to go back and watch it in color because I'm so curious, because the true hue color is a modern take on the classic Technicolor from back in the day. That's why it has such like a crazy rich and classic looking tone to it. It's not normal everyday color that we see in modern movies that just like oversaturated, super vibrant color. This is just really deep and rich and just super pleasing to the eye. So when you watch it, it's like one of the most beautiful shows I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm watching this, and we watched it in black and white, and I was just stunned by how beautiful the show is. The lighting and the smoke clouds when he's at the bar with his cigarette, and the smoke it just looks so beautiful on the screen. And then you watch it in color, and I was like, my mind, watching it in black and white first and then watching it in color is the way to do it. Because if you see the scenes in the black and white and then you turn that color on, the explosion to your eyes, you're like, damn, this is amazing. It feels like you're getting a different experience, even though it's the same episode. So I went and watched it both. I highly recommend you do both because it is just like, it's mind blowing, man. I mean, and it's cool because it seems like we're getting more of this. You know, it's like a lot, there's been major releases recently that have tapped into the black and white model as well, with Godzilla -1 got a black and white release. Logan had a black and white release, which is really cool. Mad Max Fury Road had one. Even Parasite, the horror movie, got a black and white release. So I don't know, there's something about black and white that just pulls you in a much more dramatic way, and it's something that we don't see a lot. So like the blacks are darker and deeper, and the shadows are crisper. And when you get the light shining through windows, there's something that just like pops more than it does even with color. And it just adds a whole other layer of beauty that you don't really get anymore. So like, would you like to see more of this split option going forward in shows or movies?
I would. I think it depends on what the vibe is. I really do. Like if I'm watching
For sure.
Spider-Man Brand New Day, like I don't want to see that shit in black and white because I
Sure.
know it's supposed to be like modern day. So it depends on the vibe, but I think that is really cool. Is it like CRT color almost? Like you know the older TVs where like say you were watching Boy Meets World or something, like the vibrant colors were made to be brighter for those boxy TVs. Is it like that or is it even more rich? What's it like in color?
Well, dude, it's way more rich than that. It was famous color, like when color was really becoming the thing. They were transitioning out of black and white. Technicolor from back in the day started in like the 1920s, and it went from the 20s to the 50s, and it was just known for its like super highly vibrant and deep and rich colors. That it was just an interesting way to color process a lot of these movies, and they kind of take the Technicolor aspects and they made like a modern twist on it. So it's a little bit it's like cleaner and clearer than it would have been back in the day. But Technicolor is just so beautiful that a lot of movies now are trying to tap back into that. I just you got to go watch it for yourself. It's stunning. I just watched it today in color, like just to get another. I've watched it the first episode like 4 times now because I'm just like, you know, you just don't get this type of content anymore. And the fact that they would do this in the style of a Marvel character, a comic book character, I think is it just works so well. It's just so fucking cool. And to get something this refreshing, I think is just it's wonderful, and that's why I think you can watch it more than once. So I highly recommend you watch it. It's much better than what you're thinking of the old school big fat square tubes we used to watch.
Yeah. Is it, and I don't know if you'll know this answer, but is it like the color, you know, Wizard of Oz was like one of the first movies to come out in color
Yep.
in theaters. And, you know,
Yes.
that came out in the 30s. Is it like what that
Yep.
was? Okay.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
that's Technicolor. So it's during that time period at least. So yeah, I mean you can expect something like that, but with modern technology and a modern take on it, so it looks even better. It's just like just wait till you see it. It's one of those things you have to see it to understand that the second you see him in that scene in the beginning of the show of the episode when he's in the alcove and he's sitting there at the bar and he's smoking his cigar or a cigarette and the smoke is pluming and then you've got the red velvet seats all around in the bar and the wooden bar top and just the clothing and everything. When you see it in color, you're just going to be like, whoa, like it's a whole different experience. It's so incredible the way that they did this. I was blown away by it, truly. I have not seen something this beautiful visually in a long time in terms of colors because I love me some colors. We talk about this a lot that most of the modern things now just are devoid of color. And so this literally gives you an option to rip color away entirely. So you should love that one, Chase, because there's no color for you, buddy. It can be real dark. But then it gives you the option of having lots of color that's so vibrant but so rich and just deep. And it's just like it totally changes how you watch it. If you watch it in black and white, it has a much more dramatic, it has a true noir feel. But if you watch it in color, it feels much more like a comic book movie. So it really kind of changes the atmosphere.
It is interesting what a lot of directors and producers are having to do now, because the game is so competitive with,
Hmm.
4K HD and having to keep the attention span of audiences. These high-end directors are having to do new things to really captivate a whole new audience. Like if you look at, if you're looking at Christopher Nolan, he's filming a lot of things in IMAX film, which like the
Hmm.
original film sells, you know, even though you have a HD camera, a regular film was like half the size of that of an IMAX pixel, right? So he's doing stuff like that. Whereas now you have directors that are doing this thing where you have these multiple options. So the game is getting competitive. But to answer your question, I think you are going to see more stuff like this. Maybe not the exact same. Like, I don't think we're going to see black and white films in theaters all the time. But you're going to see um, the auteurism style of these directors really pushing the limits, because the game is so competitive. It's almost to the point in theaters where we've talked about before, or on TV that we've talked about before, on TV especially, if you can't make your money right off the bat, they'll cancel you. And same thing with theaters, Now it's like the major blockbusters that are producing. Um, you probably don't know this, but they just announced, I really loved that Spartacus show that came back on Stars. Well, they canceled it after one season. So it's not coming back. And that's just what happens now. So it goes to show that people are going to have to start, directors and producers are going to have to start doing things like this and really thinking in detail on how to keep audiences really engaged at another level in order to stay competitive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with your point though that it kind of is a it can either become a gimmick or it could be something that adds value. And I think you have to pick and choose how you use certain things like this, because you don't want to fall into that gimmick category where the people are like, I mean, it's cool, but like what was the point of doing it? But I think in this case it works so well because of the type of story that it is, and because it is a noir detective story with obviously Spider-Man in it, or a spider in it, that it works extremely well. And you can do both the color and the black and white to appeal to different generations of audiences too, which is kind of fun there. Because I think you'll, for the older, like millennials and maybe older, will be interested in the black and white. And then for the younger generations coming up, they're going to always want to see the color. But I mean, obviously, I recommend watching it in both, because both are incredible. And it really gives you a unique feeling each time you watch it with color or with black and white. And that's something that I can't touch on enough, is that the atmosphere feels totally different when you watch it in color compared to black and white. You'll see when you watch it. It's pretty wild. But let's jump on into the episode itself here, because there's a lot to dig into with this one, and it's the start of something very special. And I know a lot of people will probably already watch all the episodes. I have waited. I'm going to watch them one by one because I want to have like honest reactions to all of these. So what did you think of episode 1 overall? And like what moments stood out to you the most, either in a good way or a bad way?
Overall, I thought it was great. I mean, I thought it was a fantastic episode. Actually, one of the scenes that really stood out to me, and actually, I will get the name correct this time. Ruby, when she's in the car about to drown,
Mm,
and I say Nicolas Cage, Ben Reilly,
mm,
Spider-Man Noir, he was trying to save her and couldn't save her. It made me think of the iRobot movie for a second when, the
what?
robot was trying to say, well, there's a scene
Oh
in that
man,
movie where like the
I remember
robot
that.
was trying to save the girl and then Will Smith, and he chose Will Smith, but it was kind of like that moment he couldn't save her. But in black and white, that scene really captured the essence
Mm,
of that 20s style with the lighting and everything. Um, I think a big part of it made me realize what a drunk he really was. He was kind of like a drunk or dealing with problems, which we've never seen that from a Spider-Man before. And then, of course, popping into my head, I always think Uncle Ben when I hear Ben, but I know it's not Uncle Ben. But I wonder if like, the thing about this is the fact that it's like its own thing. I don't know. Maybe there's an opportunity in the future. I would hope so. I doubt it, but I hope so. It would be cool to get something to happen in the MCU like we had with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, where maybe somehow we got Nick Cage coming into the
Oh
MCU. I think
man,
it'd be sick.
please.
Because now with like timelines, you can do that. Even though like he'd be an old man in the current day, but maybe he can like jump over. I don't know. I think it'd be sick. Um, but of course, the other scenes that stood out, I told you like the whole, you know, dance hall concert scene was really cinematic. But then, the guy Mad Eye Moody, I call him Mad Eye Moody from Harry Potter.
Silvermane.
Dude, Silvermane was a fucking beast. Like
Yeah.
he was terrifying, and how Winston and they all got together and then cut that guy's throat. Man, it was wild. And then of course the ending fight scene. It was interesting they chose Sandman as the villain here because Sandman can turn out really well like it did here, or you can get Spider-Man 3 Sandman. So I'm glad it really wound up going well. And then, of course, all I kept thinking was, when he got kicked off the roof there, or punched off the roof of the warehouse, it
Mhm.
was basically the astronomy tower, but he didn't fall to his death. So it
Yeah.
was it was sick, man. I thought it was an excellent episode overall. The scenes really did keep sticking out. Um, and one of the characters that really uh, stood out in my mind a lot too is like his secretary. It almost kind of had a bit of a Daredevil vibe to it because he's a lawyer, he's defending the city. In a way, he really was defending Hell's Kitchen because it's like the same place practically
Mhm.
in New York, but. No, it was great. So, like, all those scenes really stood out. And same thing, I'm watching it one by one, too. Yuli's brother-in-law texted me this week about it, and he's like, I watched the whole thing. Did you finish it yet? And I was like, no, man. I was like,
No,
it just
gotta take
came
your
out
time.
Wednesday. So I'm taking my time, but everyone loves it. I can see why. I think it's just so unique. It's something so unique that we haven't really had anything like this in a while.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Sin City guy. Like, I give Sin City so many tries, but like,
I love
when I
Sin
kept
City, dude.
seeing, I think it was Brittany Murphy before she passed away. Like, she was like a stripper on a pole or something
Jessica
in that
Alba.
movie. Jessica Alba, that's
Yeah.
it. I knew it was one of
And
those.
that
Yeah.
didn't do it for you?
I was like,
Are you
dude,
kidding me?
and I like Bruce Willis, and nothing but prayers to his family. I know he's got health
Mm.
problems now, but and I like Bruce Willis and stuff, but it was like more about like monsters kind of too, and but this kind of had more of
Sin
like a
City.
Watchmen vibe in a way. So like the Watchmen, like that was sick as fuck. Imagine if we got that in like black and white. That would be fucking sick
Oh,
to see
yeah, that
with
would be
like
fun to see.
Rorschach and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good, man. I thought it was great, which is interesting because like I kept giving Sin City a chance, and I was like, dude, like I don't know, which is interesting. You would think the Gooner in me would be all about Jessica and Alba on the pole, but I think that was the moment where I just shut it off. I was like, I can't pay attention anymore. Just thinking about Jessica Alba on the pole.
Yeah, I was like, you turn it off at that scene. What the hell's wrong with you? No, that sin, you can't compare these two. They're not even close to the same thing, and that's why I think people. Yeah, it is like noir style Sin City, but they're not. They're totally different. This is a completely different style. I love Sin City too. I think it's so freaking cool, and I loved how they did the black and white styling, and then they had the color, like the crazy colors of the blood and stuff that would come out in Sin City. Awesome. I thought it was so much fun. But this one is incredibly unique. And it is, like we keep saying, so refreshing to see something new in the comic book hero genre because it's all been basically the same type of shit. Just gigantic world at stake and like big explosions and massive battles. And This just proves you can have street level stories that are equally as interesting, if not more so, because they feel more relatable. And I think that's what works so well with this one. Also, it's just giving a totally different style, noir style. I mean, that's something we rarely ever see anymore. When I think of noir, in modern times, there's a show called Sugar on Apple TV, and it is phenomenal with Colin Farrell. It's a noir style detective story with a crazy twist. And that one, if you haven't seen that one, Chase, you should definitely watch that. It's very good. But that noir style, you just don't see it that much anymore. So when you do see it, it's something to treasure. And I think they just excelled at this. And basically, you listed the entire show as your favorite scene. So I agree with that, the entire episode. But there are certain ones that stuck out to me the most. So I'm going to start with the opening, because we first see it when the show opens. You see Ben swinging through the city, and he says, "Someone asked me what universe this was. Strange question that stuck with me all these years later. All I could say for sure was that it was the only one I knew, and that was as true then as it is now." And I say that's clearly a nod to Into the Spider-Verse, at least from how it appears on the surface. It's a nod to Into the Spider-Verse, where we first meet Spider-Noir on the screen, and Miles Morales asks the other Spider people that all appeared if they're from another dimension. But it also almost makes no sense, because this version of Spider-Noir is not Peter Parker. He's Ben Reilly. So he was never Into the Spider-Verse. So that's why I think this is like, it's entirely its own thing. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. There's no real connections to the other universes other than the fact that some of the villains so far that we have seen have appeared elsewhere, but like these are not the same. They're not the same people. So like even the Sandman, like you were saying, it's kind of, you're like, oh, it's a little weird having the Sandman. I'm like, it actually makes sense though, because the Sandman's character being like an enforcer is kind of cool. I like that. And he's not like, Sandman's a complicated villain where he's not entirely a villain. His reasons for being a villain are different than most. And I think if he had a way out, he would take it. But so I think he works pretty well in that, like, am evil, but like not the kind of ambiguous character. And I think he's going to be great in this role. And so I think that was a smart choice. But that's just a really interesting way to open this. I mean, you get him swinging, and he makes a direct nod that there are other dimensions, other universes. And so I think in my mind, is that a way for them to like playfully say, hey, we're setting up a bigger multiverse stake that he will connect to later? I don't know. But that could be pretty damn fun if that's the case. And, you know, the other one that really stood out was arguably one of the coolest scenes in the entire show is when we see Ben and he's narrating his backstory, and he's climbing up the side of that building, and you see the projections in the windows of his past. Dude, like we see a young Ben playing baseball, getting into fights as a kid, and then adult Ben dancing with his woman. And he says he fell in love with the city and everything like that. He's like, it's a mistake I'll never make again, that he fell in love in the city. And I just thought, holy shit, man, like what a creative way to show us, not tell us about his backstory, and like to have it projected up the side of the building in the windows as he's crawling. I'm like, I've never seen that before. And I thought that was so unbelievably creative, because they could have easily just done 1,000,001 flashbacks showing his backstory. But instead they're like, we're already in this story. We'll catch you up to speed, and we're going to do it in the most creative way possible. Spider-Man climbing a building, and then you see his life projected in the windows. That's fucking amazing, man. Like, truly, I saw it, and the first time we watched the episode, my jaw dropped. I was in awe of that scene. It was just incredibly creative, and I don't know, that one really stuck out to me. But I think it's funny that his name is Ben, because how many more characters named Ben can Nicolas Cage play in his career? That's all I got to say. Ben. You got Ben Gates, now you got Ben Reilly. And then I think you touched on it a little bit, the fact that I'm wondering if his name being Ben is a nod to, you know, Uncle Ben. And I don't know. I kind of feel like, I'm sure that played a role in the writers naming this version of the Spider Ben. You would have to think so. And I think that him saying that the Ruby is the one who said with great power comes great responsibility, I think is very interesting that they switched it to her. And so I have a lot of questions about all of this, and I'm just wondering, in your opinion, like, them shifting the responsibility quote to Ruby, and then Ben says, well, she was the greatest responsibility I ever had, and I failed her. The spider failed her. After that, I didn't want the power or the responsibility. So it's like shifting that iconic line to Ruby instead of Uncle Ben, which is just kind of a very interesting shift that we haven't seen before, because Ruby is kind of, I guess, the Mary Jane of this world. Because unfortunately, all the love interests just seem to get cooked in Spider-Man, so it's a problem. Everyone who he cares about gets cooked some way or another. They have to move the story along, I guess. So, what do you think? Like, do you think that changes the emotional weight for Ben's character? Or does it make it like his grief feel more personal, more painful than Peter with Uncle Ben? Like, what do you think?
I mean, I think it does. I don't know. I mean, I think it brings in that nod about it, but at the same time, I can't feel too sorry for the guy when I saw Gwen Stacy get thrown off a building.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, it's like, but yeah, it does a little bit. I think it was probably intentional. It would be cool if at some point along the lines, like they tied it back. Like maybe that was Uncle Ben's dad, like great grandfather or something. Maybe
That'd be
that's what
interesting.
Uncle Ben was named after or something. I don't know. But yeah, I would say it does a little bit. However, like you said, the problem with the love interest in Spider-Man is they all seem to get cooked, man. I mean,
Yeah.
MJ, you know, she survived the MJ with Toby, but then we never got a Spider-Man 4, and it was
She would have
Harry
gotten,
that got cooked, and then we're just like sitting there watching
they
him,
would
and
have
we
axed her.
assume they end up together. We don't
Yeah.
really know. We assume so. They've talked about like maybe having a scene somewhere in the next like Avengers or Spider-Man or whatever where you have a glimpse of Kristen Dunst as MJ in there with Toby, but which I think would be cool. But then, Andrew, man, and Tasm, the one I like the most, Emma Stone. Yeah. I mean, they did it justice. She got thrown off the building and then, hit the bottom. It was cooked. Uh, and now Zendaya as MJ, she can't remember anything. So it's just, there's not a good track record there. It's like Robin and Batman. Like the
Poor
Robins
Spider.
don't have a good track record.
Yeah. Yeah. It just seems like poor the spider, no matter what dimension, no matter what universe, cannot catch a damn break, son. His fate. I think it's really interesting, a conversation, I guess, about this is the fate of whoever takes up that mantle as the spider, their fate, no matter what universe, what dimension they're in, is always the same. It's like they can't, the people they get close with are going to die, is what it seems like, or at least get taken out of their life. Like that's a part of the picking up the mantle, it seems.
Man, that's deep because what's funny is that's a trend that happens in all of those films. I mean, think about it. It's the trend here in Noir where he couldn't save Ruby. I got it right, right?
Hmm.
Ruby was his
Yeah.
lover and not the dancer cat,
Yeah.
but
Not the same
and she's
person.
a singer, yeah.
Yeah.
But Ruby couldn't be saved. If you go back to Toby, the OG, love me some Toby, man. Toby's my guy. Um, but
The Tobes.
you know, and eventually we kind of think it works out. But then if you look at Spider-Man 2, the reason he kept saying he didn't love her when we know he really fucking did the whole time, and Harry like dated her in Spider-Man 1, but Spider-Man 2, she confessed her love to him, and he said, I don't, because he didn't want her getting hurt. Well, if you go to Tasm, the amazing Spider Man, in 1 and 2, at the end of 1, he wouldn't be with Gwen because after her father died and didn't show up in the funeral because he didn't want her getting hurt. And then he decided he would be with her in TASM 2. And unfortunately, look what happened. I don't think there's any more hurt than getting cooked. And that's what happened. She got thrown off a building, man, at the
Mm-hmm.
bottom. Not enough. There was too much slack in the web, which was just, ah, man, that
Just
scene
didn't
is
get there fast
amazing.
enough.
Still
Yeah.
sticks in my brain to this day. And then now, if you look at what has happened in with Tom Holland, which really can take up the mantle because look at what he did with No Way Home, with bringing those two in to kind of pass the torch. And Zendaya is great. With her playing MJ, you know, they finally got together and like the whole world was against them. And then you had the multiverse situation where she had to basically forget about him so he can fix the universe. So it's an interesting point you make there because it's a theming we consistently see. You see where it's almost like, you know, the hero is kind of like a, you know, if you're going to be a hero, there's never a happy ending to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, there is so it's the responsibility of taking up the mantle of any hero. It seems like in any of these things, and this is, I mean, something deeper you can talk about with life as well. But as a leader, as a hero, you have to make sacrifices in your own life in order to do what you were meant to do. And so I think that's just the overall theming that we get in a lot of these stories. And it's just interesting how, even in different universes, different dimensions, totally different stories, that thematic element is still consistent amongst all of them because it's used as like the main driver for all these stories and, you know, to push the character along in their development to learn about themselves. And so in this one, it's really interesting because it's coming from the woman that he loved. And you got to think like, is it more impactful coming from his fiance who clearly drowned but didn't just drown? It was pretty obvious that her hands were tied to the wheel, so something nefarious did happen. I think someone killed her and he couldn't save her. And like, is it more impactful that she's the one who said it and she then is also the one who died, or Ben? I think in this case, like, I don't know. I think it's interesting because the impact that this had on Ben here is that it had the reverse impact on him that it had with Peter when Ben died. Like, Peter became more of the Spider-Man instead of Ben. In this one, Ben like is he completely just disregards Spider-Man. Hit that part of his life is gone, and then we see him as this grizzled, old, given up on life, basically version of Spider-Man that we've never seen before, which kind of leads me to this other question: that how do you feel about us starting off with a version of the spider that is a broken man who seemingly has no fight left in him after his fiance died? Like, do you enjoy this style of storytelling where the hero is at like their weakest or most down on themselves position in the beginning and then they slowly kind of like get their mojo back? Or would you rather have seen like an origin story for this character specifically?
I think it's cool starting where we are because we've seen so many fucking origins of things. Like, just throw us into the action. But that's also a theming you see with all Spider-Mans. I mean, look at when Aunt May died in No Way Home. What did she say? She told him right before she died, as Peter was holding her, with great power comes great responsibility. So it seems like a trend we're seeing with these Spider-Mans that when a tragedy comes up, that quote also comes up too. So there could be something tied with that. But to answer your question, I think it was nice kind of seeing the realness of it and already seeing someone in that world versus we're getting a whole nother origin story and we're waiting for this character to really build up momentum. Like, we've seen that. And I think already relating to this character a bit, even though it's a different one with Into the Spider-Verse, was nice that they just threw us right into it. And you're kind of learning more about him as it goes along, which also adds more into the noir factor and almost like feeds into the detective style because you don't know everything up front about him. So then you almost start to question him, almost like the whole Shutter Island deal with Leo. So it's an interesting point.
Shutter Island. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it seems to be a trend now, and it's been dating back for a little while now, early 2000s, mid 2000s, for stories like this, where I look at Logan and Thor Ragnarok as good examples of like older, depressed, defeated, fat, deflated heroes that are forced to regain their mojo after like all going through a whole bunch of bad shit. And I think it works. Like it can work for known entities really well, especially in those cases where we had their story playing out for years on the big screen, so you know the characters really well. But I think for for a character like Ben Reilly that we don't know very well, it would have been nice maybe to have seen him in his prime, because I kind of get annoyed sometimes they jump into these shows where they're old, grizzled, and they're rusty, and you're like, I don't necessarily want to see an older, grizzly, rusty, not Spider-Man. Like it's weird, but it does work here because this is a noir show. So I do feel like because he's like that, it definitely it aids the story in terms of him being an actual detective and forced to do detective work as a PI. And I think that it does work in that case. But I would have liked to have seen, we get quick glimpses of him kicking ass and stuff and in his youth and in his prime. And I'm like, damn, I want more of that. But it's still only episode 1, so we haven't seen the rest of it yet. But it is cool because they show him as the down on his luck, grizzly old, I give up, I have, like, whatever. So there's hopefully only up from here. And this kind of goes into the next idea here, that grief and responsibility themes are ever present in this first episode. I mean, literally from the very first sequence to the end of the show, we see Ben consistently refusing to take up his spider mantle again and again, despite all the chaos in the city. He's afraid to tangle with Silvermane and the mayor, and he straight up tells his friend Robbie that he doesn't give a shit what Ruby has to say about him or would say, because she's been dead a long time. And he also says, like, he's basically retired from responsibility. And he also says something very telling in this exchange later with Donegal when Donegal wants to extort Silvermane for more money after they follow Winston back and they go to the burnt down mansion where Silvermane was, and they're listening into this conversation. And afterwards, Silvermane's like, oh, well, he said he'll pay us any amount. So like, why don't we go and ask him for more money? We can get $1,000 out of him. And Ben is like, no, I don't want to get entangled in all this shit. I value being alive. And Donegal says, as Ben's walking away, fortune favors the bold. He's like, and Ben replies, yeah, and look how poor I am. So like, you see this version of Ben, and he's more of like a, do you see him as more of a reluctant hero who's kind of slowly coming back? Or do you think he is truly done with his hero phase until the city basically forces his hand? Like, had he not gotten entangled with all of these bad people, do you think he would truly ever come back as the Spider? Based on what we've seen.
I think it's a mix of both. I think it's a forced hand situation, but also I think there's something deep in him that wouldn't allow, criminal activity to just continue based on his past. So I think it's a mix of both. However, as we've seen throughout this episode, I mean, he's a drunk, basically. Like in the words of Kylo Ren.
He's just like depressed.
Your parents sold you for drinking money. So no, yeah, he's like depressed, drinking at the bar. Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine, like, can you get DUIs web slinging in the air? Like, can you be drunk while swinging? Like, is that DWS?
But we really don't see him drunk in this show. Like, we haven't seen him drunk in the episodes yet.
He was taking some hard
He was drinking.
Liquor.
For sure. He's drinking. But I don't know if he's drunk. But yeah, I mean, he drinks a little bit. He's depressed.
Yeah, so to answer your question, I think it's like they're forcing his hand, but he wouldn't allow it to just go out of control either.
Interesting. What would make you... I'm just thinking because I'm like, what would make you say that? Because to me, the whole episode, every opportunity he gets to be bold, to be brave, to be courageous, he says, no, fuck that. Like, I'm good. And he just, like... He knows, even with Robbie's writing up all he's writing in the newspaper saying how some brave mobster decided to take on Silvermane by going and blowing up his house when he was asleep upstairs, and the old bastard survived. And he's like, and if only we had our old hero, the Spider, here to wrangle him back in. And Ben's reading it outside of the hotel when he's waiting for Kat to arrive, and he's like, "Damn it, Robbie, lay off, would you?" Like, typical, which is funny because it was a super cheesy but very good noir 1930s style line there. He's like, "Damn it, Robbie, lay off, will you?" And it's just like, then it cuts to, and it does the quintessential, it's daytime, and then he opens up the paper and he's sitting there, and then all of a sudden it shifts to night. You're like, fuck yeah, that's like old time detective stuff. I love it. But I have, so far in this first episode, I haven't seen anything that would tell me or suggest to me that he would actually come back unless his hand was forced. Like, I look at, and this kind of goes to what you brought up, the Dumbledore falling tower scene when he's falling and he gets kicked off the roof. As he's falling, the camera like is really zoomed in on his face. He looks even reluctant to save himself. He looks like, I should just let myself fall. And it's interesting because like earlier in the episode, as he's trying to extort, just before the scene, as he's trying to blackmail Kat in the alcove, he says like he's getting her money, and she's like, "Are you insane or something?" He's like, "You know what? Sometimes I think I should just open up the oven and stick my head inside." And then he's like, "And then just be done with it all already." And then she's like, "Well, why don't you do it?" And he said, "Because I'm a coward." And he walks away. Those lines, it's telling you who he is right now. At this point, at this stage, that's who he is. He's a coward. He's afraid of his responsibility. He says as much. And he's showing it every step, every turn. So as he's falling off of that roof, and they zoom in on his face, and he's just like, "Oh, like really?" Like, it looks like he's making a choice here. And I want to get your perspective on this. Do you think in that moment he was actually thinking, "I'm just gonna like fuck it, like I'm just gonna let myself go and die and just be done with all of this already"? Or was he like, "I just don't want to use my powers," and like, "Oh damn it, he's making me use my powers"? Like, in that moment, the way they show his face, what do you think? Do you think he was just about to let himself go? Like, he's just done?
I think he was just looking for a spot to grab onto. I think he looked kind of too into it because he said that line. He said, "Heights don't really scare me."
Hmm.
So I think he was just, I don't know. I mean, that was an interesting thought you had, but I don't think he was ever worried about falling to his death there.
No, I don't think he
Because
was
if he wanted
worried.
to kill himself, he could have done that already. You had plenty of opportunities.
Maybe, but what I'm saying is in that moment, the way they show him, he's falling and he's just got this look on his face, and he's just looking at the camera like really? Like, he looks
Yeah.
like upset that he's falling and now is in a position where he has to make a choice to use his powers. And so in my mind, I look at that and I say, is he reluctant to use his power, or is he like contemplating actually just letting himself fall? He's already said numerous times how unhappy he is and how he wants to avoid responsibility. But at the same time, he did say that line earlier that he values being alive. So like, it's a weird scene where that look on his face isn't entirely clear, but I'm trying to think if it's more so his just reluctancy to use his powers again, like, because he doesn't want to be the spider, and now he's in a position where he has to use them. So it was just a weird scene. The way that they filmed his face, it was very interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I don't know. It makes me think of that Lonely Island song, Like a Boss. He's like, try to kill myself. Can't do it. Pussy out. Oh, fuck. I can't do it. Shit.
What the hell? Oh my god! Oh
Yeah, no, I
man.
think he was just like kind of looking for the right moment. I think it was more about, hey, I really didn't want to use these powers, and I was trying to question you, and you're not giving me the answer. So this goes to the full circle moment of what we were talking about. I think they were forcing his hand, and which goes into my opinion, he's not really giving it up because he's still trying to get these answers, and he was forced in that moment to use his powers where he could become back to be the Spider in the future. But yeah, trying to kill myself. Oh fuck, I can't fucking do it. Shit, pussy out.
The fuck, dude? You're so ridiculous. I don't even know what the hell that is. I haven't heard that one before.
That was from the Lonely Island, like a boss song.
Oh shit! I didn't know that was. Okay.
Remember, he was like, I was Andy Samberg. He was like, I go to work, trying to kill myself. Can't fucking do it. I pussy out. Oh, fuck me. I can't fucking do it. Shit.
No, I don't remember those fucking lyrics, but that explains a lot of his Lonely Island. Holy shit. Good God. Yeah, I think go back and watch it. When you watch it again in color, tell me you don't see that. There's a look on his face that's like he's thinking about just letting himself fall before he uses it. That's all I'm saying. Go back and watch that scene again and tell me you think otherwise. But I think what's really cool, though, too, about this entire episode is that the symbolism is everywhere for like where he's at as a character and when we see him in this first episode, because there's in the beginning, in the opening of the show, there's broken glass everywhere. I don't know if you noticed that, but like Ben slams two robbers and their faces into glass in the jewelry store, and it shatters very obviously towards the camera, pretty intensely shattering glass. And then we have the intro song and the intro sequence that shows a bunch of graphics that kind of resemble broken glass, shattered glass. And it really kind of sets the tone for this version of Ben being a completely broken man, but maybe, just maybe, something can help glue him back together. That symbolism is really strong in the beginning of this episode. And I also love how the intro is it reminded me of like Casino Royale, the way that they did it. It reminded me of a James Bond movie, the way they did this intro, which is fucking sick. But also, when he was climbing the tower, jumping around here, when he was climbing the tower, going to spy on Kat, what in the fuck did we witness? What was up with that guy fucking sticking stamps all over his naked body in the window? What in the actual hell was the point of that? Like, do you think that was purely comedic relief, or do you think it made like the world feel more lived in and alive, kind of showing people living their own lives in the background while the main story's going on? Because when I first saw it, I was like, what was the point of that shit? It was,
what's funny
insane.
Was before, we were talking about some topics on the show earlier today. When I first watched it, because I watched it in black and white, I couldn't tell what that was. I was like, what the fuck is he sticking on himself? So until we talked about it before the show, like reading over our notes, I was like, what the fuck was that?
Right.
And it was so outlandish, too. It really didn't even correlate with what was going on. So, I don't know, but you brought up a good point. Maybe people are just fucking weird, man. It reminded me of, like, the Friends episode where they're watching the guy across the street and he's, like, naked in his apartment. Naked man. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's strange.
Right. When I watched it in black and white, I was like, is he sticking, like, baloney all over? Like, what is this? Because when it is in black and white, it's hard to tell what it was. But when you watch it in color, it's stamps. He's got stamps and he's sticking them all over his body. I was like, what the shit is, what's the point of that? Because it comes up later, even when they're developing the photos, and she's like, oh, nice photo. And he's like, oh, yeah, I couldn't resist. And there's the picture of him with the stamps all over him. I'm like, what the fuck was that about? Who was that guy? And it made me think a lot about it because, it's rare when you see things like that. It comes across as just comedic relief. But I do think that there is a sense that they do things like that to make the city, make the experience feel more lived in. And like, yes, we're following our main characters' lives, but there's other people doing other shit, in this case, weird shit, in the background. Like they're living their own lives despite what's happening in the story. And so I think in a weird way, it almost helps ground the story even more. Because you're like, all this chaos is happening, but like only the people who are involved in it know about it. And then everyone else is just living their normal weird lives in the background. And so like that was a quick glimpse of someone living their weird life. I think that's just my stab at it. I mean, I don't know. But when I first saw it, I was like, what in the fuck? What was the point of that? He's just like just sticking shit all over his body. This is disgusting. But I don't know. This is my take on it. I think it is a way to try and further ground the story and maybe make it feel more alive, the city, and I don't know. It was just weird. I don't know. I want to hear the director's take on this. It just
There's got to be some like maybe hidden symbolism or
who the
something.
fuck knows?
I would love to see what kind of stamps those are. Like if it's zoomed in, it's like what's written on those stamps.
And why is he sticking them all over his body? What the fuck is the point of that? I don't know. People do weird shit. It would have been funny if they had a guy in there like pouring wax candles on his nipples, just Little Nicky style.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's one of the best things ever. But yeah, anyway, it's just that was something that stood out to me a lot, and I was like, I would like to hear your take on it because it made no fucking sense to me, but it just didn't fit with the rest of the story. But at the same time, when you think about it the other way, maybe it did. I don't know, bizarre. But let's talk about Kat for a second because she's an interesting character. So she's meeting with the mayor. So when we first find out about her, we think that she's just this guy's wife, which going to that scene, fucking hilarious when Ben sees the picture of his wife and he looks at Kat in the picture and then he looks at the guy, Mr. Carmody, and he's like, "Are you a rich man, Mr. Carmody?" And he's like, "No." Is that maybe a strong wit? And he's like, "What?" And then Janet, the secretary, is just sitting in the background, like, why are you asking him that? And he shows her the picture, and she's like, because she's like way out of his league. And I just thought that scene itself was a very funny way of handling that type of scene. And then, of course, later he calls him a syphilitic walrus, like a fat walrus, basically. And but I want to talk about her character because I'm like, who is Mr. Carmody? What is his relation to her? And why would Kat be meeting up with the mayor or interested in hooking up with him? And you're like, what is she up to? In your opinion, what do you think is going on here? Because I found that whole connection strange. I have an idea of who I think Mr. Carmody is, potentially, but I want to get your take on that because that wasn't very clear. And we were only in episode 1, but it was setting up a lot of things that I think is going to be interesting later on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like she's trying to do her own investigation. Like maybe, and I don't know this. I mean, maybe she's corrupt as well, but maybe the mayor's like got something going on and she's trying to find out. Just like we saw with Silverman, he has more stuff going on than you think. And for 1 second with the stamps guy, it makes me think maybe that's like a callback to. Have you heard of the movie Rear Window? It's like in an older movie where the guy's like investigating people, but the whole movie is filmed through this guy's like window, almost like Disturbia was actually calling back to that, like the movie Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf. So maybe it's something like that, but I still can't think of.
I don't see how that would be with the stickers.
Yeah. I don't know. I was thinking maybe detective or something, but still, if I was the director, I wouldn't put a fat guy with stamps in the window. No. But I don't know. But yeah, maybe she's doing her own investigative work. I don't know because it's only episode 1, so it's hard to predict, but that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's weird to me. I don't know what she would be doing with the mayor in particular because I don't. She's a singer at a nightclub as far as we know. But the story with her and Mr. Carmody, so like who do you think Mr. Carmody is and why do you think there's no way they're married. Like I'm just gonna. There's no way. Obviously, they're not. Like they kind of say it. Once we find out later who she is, Ben is like, obviously, that's not Mrs. Carmody, and they're like, well, then who is she? And I think he's probably Mr. Carmody is probably someone trying to get dirt on the mayor to interfere with the campaign in some capacity because he's, as we can see throughout the show, he's up for re-election, Mayor Alfred Morris. So I think in some way someone tried to set up this meeting and then catch the two of them in the act of doing something scandalous, get photos, and then impact his campaign, or to do it for blackmail, which I'm wondering if that has any connection to, which I'd imagine it does, with Silvermane. I would imagine that guy works for Silvermane in some capacity, and that was a whole setup. But what do you think? Who do you think Mr. Carmody is?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good idea. My guess is as good as yours. I mean, you could even have a situation. I doubt this is the case, but maybe Carmody is an alias. Maybe it's someone we've already ran into, but we don't know, and they're using the name Carmody. Carmody. So, but I don't know. That's why I'm looking forward to seeing more how this series goes. Maybe Carmody is the stamp man. Maybe that's why
maybe
we
that's
saw
the
him.
big reveal. We find out that Carmody was in there with the stamps. I can't imagine why my wife would walk out on me.
That's wild, man.
Holy shit. That's a funny one. That's a good one. Maybe that is the alias, Mr. Carmody. He just wants people to investigate him because he gets off on people spying on him. He likes
Dude,
he likes
so
voyeur.
Oh
Mr.
my
Carmody's the voyeur. I just love how he calls him a bloated walrus. Basically, that's hilarious. But we do get the reveal of Sandman in this episode, which is really cool. And we talked about this a little bit as cat security, and we get that cool fight between the two of them. What is it about Spider-Man fighting Sandman always near or in a fucking skyscraper that is under construction? It is like, I don't care the universe, I don't care the world, I don't care the timeline. You will get a fight between Spider-Man or a spider against Sandman in a fucking skyscraper that's under construction. Every one. Every time we've seen him, they fought somewhere near a skyscraper. It happened in the most recent one. Now I'm forgetting the name. No Way Home.
No
It
Way
happened.
Home.
Yep, it happened in No Way Home when they're fighting around that skyscraper with the three spiders. It happened in Spider-Man 3 when we first saw him appear in the original Spider-Man movies. So like, what the fuck, dude? What is it about the construction sites? I don't know. It's just weird to me. It's an observation I made because I was like, this seems to just keep happening. We keep getting fights between these two characters at buildings that are under construction.
It's something about that style. I mean, you can make it the case that, well, what else is he going to swing off of, and Spider-Man's from New York. But yeah, it did. It reminded me of the building in Home Alone when he's lost in New York and like Joe Pesci and Harry are trying to break in. Suck brick, kid. Yeah. Yeah, the electricity. Oh, yeah, it was reminded me of that. But great point, because I swear every Spider-Man movie, though, they're fighting on top of a building or something's under construction.
Specifically, skyscrapers under construction. Every
Dude,
time.
look at, and not to bring up Batman again, but same thing with all the fucking Batman movies. Like, he fights the Joker on top of a construction building all the fucking time. Look at The Dark Knight. He captures the Joker in the middle of a construction building.
Right. There's something about that. I don't know what it is. I guess it's the vantage point. They're up high. It looks cool. I don't know. But for whatever reason, it's always Sandman.
It's the aesthetic. I always see these. What's funny is I see these TikToks of like they're like gamers that do streaming or whatever, but a lot of them have shorts of them walking outside. And one of them, I forgot who it was, but he was next to like a playground or something. And there was some like construction building, and he was like, I found the setting for the next Elden Ring. Like, it's like the same thing with all this shit.
That's so weird.
Like, that's like when you were a kid, like you would jump on the playground that's half under construction and be like, okay, we're ready to fight now because this is our setting. Like, who in their fucking mind decided like that's how superheroes fight, is shit under construction?
It just seems to be a common theme, and I noticed it again here, and I'm like, it's always Sandman, which, it kind of makes sense, I guess. Construction, there can be a lot of sand there. He can use that to his advantage. I don't fucking know. But it's just
maybe
an observation.
Clayface going to Batman, like clay in the dirt,
yeah.
like sand. I'm in Florida. And then, like, where? Maybe if there was construction on a beach, where the fuck do you
Dude,
see a fight on a
sand
beach?
to construction all the time, and you don't remember like there's sandbags and all kinds of shit that they use to hold things and weigh things down. It's all over construction. I don't know, dude. I didn't write this shit. I just noticed it. I'm like, this is just funny because it's always Sandman and him fighting at a construction site. It never fails. And yeah, like you pointed out, it seems to be something that's everywhere, which I don't know, man. It just makes an interesting aesthetic, I guess. And there's a lot of shit to break and explode and fall, which adds to the dynamic of the fight scenes. And I think that's probably why. They're like, we want to make sure that there's broken boards there so that Ben can smack him upside the head with repeatedly. And where better to do that than a construction site? So, fuck, I don't know, man. It's just kind of weird.
Last thing before we move on, though, it's got to be something about New York, though, because look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're like fighting in the sewers and shit with Master Splinter the Rat. Like it's something about New York.
It is a New York thing because if you go to New York, it's always under construction. You're walking underneath all of the metal framing they're doing outside, like the people are climbing on to build onto skyscrapers and build new skyscrapers and refurbish. It's like there's construction everywhere all the time in New York City, 1000%. So that it makes sense, it does. But at the same time, it's like, God, how many times? And it's just funny that you see it every time. And I just noticed that it just happens that it's always Sandman. Like whenever Spider-Man is fighting in one of those types of settings, it's always fucking Sandman. So I just think it's, I don't know. And it definitely is a New York thing for sure, because it is always under construction. But something in that scene, with that fight scene, it seemed like after Ben was forced to use his powers and come back up to start fighting again, he was dodging Flint's punches left and right with ease after slinging back onto the roof. Do you think like him being forced to use his powers again in this way, like he's starting to feel alive again, like we're getting a little glimpse of who he was before, that like because he's being forced to tap into his power again, that maybe it's starting to come back to him? Because I mean, we even see it with his like, you know, his spider sense is different. So like it's kind of shaky. He's not even in tune with his spider sense. He doesn't know what it's trying to tell him. But when he finally starts using his powers more, he starts dodging punches and he's like zoop, zoop, slipping like a boxer when they're having that fight on the rooftop. I'm like, shit, he looks like he's alive again. So what do you think? Do you think him using his powers in that way is kind of bringing him back to life a little bit?
Yeah, I think this goes back to what we were talking about. I think my personal opinion is when he's backed into a corner and has to use it, he will, just like that quote he had in there. Like, heights don't really scare me. You know, he was letting Sandman kind of kick his ass for a minute. But I really think Sandman wouldn't have been able to do shit if he really tried to use his powers. But I think he was kind of holding back there. But then if he can't get the questions answered, he's trying to find out. It's kind of like, you know, I really don't want to be involved. But if you're forcing me to get involved, then I will. So I think it was kind of one of those things.
Well, it just seemed to like bring him to, like he got more life in him. You know, because before that, I think when he was saying, I'm not afraid of heights, he's just saying, like, you can't threaten me with this because I'm not afraid of heights. Like, I can swing. So I think in this case, though, he's like, it seemed like more life came back into him. When he was dodging, he was moving faster. He had more life in his movements in his body. And to me, it appeared like just him using his powers in that way really gave him more life. And I think it's the start of something that we're going to see. That as he taps back into his power more, he's like, oh, I kind of miss this, having this type of power and doing these things again. It feels good. So it's funny how horrible things can pull you out of a bad situation because they force you to make a choice. You either succumb to it or you make the choice to pull yourself out of it. And it just seems to be the case with these heroes. When bad shit happens, they are who they are. They're heroes. So I think we're going to get to see some cool shit later on. It's hard, you know, you want to see him kicking ass all the time, especially right from the beginning. But this one's establishing the storyline and setting the tone for the rest of it. And I think what really set the tone in a shocking way was Silvermane. Because I want to get your thoughts on Silvermane. We didn't see a lot of him. It's more of like he was kind of like the boogeyman for most of the episode. You hear about him through people discussing him and the grip that he has on the city, and you hear about him through Robbie and Ben talks about him a little bit. But then when we finally meet him, he's like poking around his burnt down mansion after he survived getting the attack, which we later kind of see that it was in like a quick flashback. It was actually Jimmy who went through his house and burned his mansion down, the guy that they were trying to find this whole time. So, but he's in the mansion and like Silvermane's poking around with all this stuff. He's like, it's funny. These people burning my house down and trying to kill me makes me feel young again. And he like kind of gets giddy when he says it. He's a sick fuck. And so like he feels threatened again. He enjoys that. Like he enjoys the chase, the idea of a threat. So like what did you think about him and that shocking throat cut that was something very unexpected. We have not seen violence like that in, I would say, in any of these movies, any comic book movie, anything related to Marvel. That was like intense. Holy shit. That's like real intense violence with the blood spilling out of his throat. It was very unexpected. It's like, what do you think of Silvermane as the main villain, like being a mob boss? And then what did you think about that kind of intense violence? Like this is not your mama's Spider-Man we're dealing with here. This is like a whole other deal. So what did you think about those things?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, just from the dance hall concert scene, you kind of tell that guy was bad news. But you were kind of more thinking it was Winston in the moment, and maybe this guy is just like a dirty business dealer. But then that happened, and it was just like the shock value moment of, oh shit, like he really reminds me kind of Kingpin in Daredevil. But you brought up a point,
Yeah.
even in that, you don't see violence like this. Or, maybe you hear the sound, right? And they turn the camera pan. This has more of kind of a rated R feel to it. So it was sick, man. It was badass.
It's shocking. I mean, most of the show is kind of lighthearted. It's kind of comedic a little bit. Yes, it has darker dramas within it, but then when they actually showed the throat cut, I was like, whoa. Daredevil, I will say Daredevil is pretty violent. Like it is. The newer version of Daredevil is pretty violent. And so it makes me wonder if is Marvel kind of going that path with maybe opening it up a little bit to make it more gruesome, more violent. Because to be honest, when you're watching all these superhero movies and they're kicking the shit out of people and there's like no blood, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like they're all super powered, strong as shit, and we see no blood. Yeah, okay. And you see like a trickle, a little cut coming down someone's face. I'm like, please. What happens in Daredevil is really what probably it would actually look like. So I kind of felt, Silvermane is an interesting villain because he's not a super villain, at least as far as we know right now. He's not a super villain, which as of yet, I don't know. He could be. But the fact that he survived that, he's the only one who survived his mansion burning, antennas go up because how would he survive that if he was asleep? So I guess we'll find that information out later. But he's so intimidating. He does such a great job. His presence alone is very intimidating, and he just doesn't seem to be afraid of anything or anyone, even people that have powers. And he kind of is that type that you don't know what he's going to do in any given moment. He's kind of unhinged a little bit, but he's getting into he's like feeling happy that people are coming for him now, because now it sounded like from the story what was set up is that he's like the top of the food chain and has nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. Everyone's scared of him. He's just fat, happy, and satisfied, to quote Andor. But in this one, it seems like now that his mansion has been burned down and someone's actually threatening his life, he's like, ooh, I've got toys to play with now. Like I've got things to do. And he's not just going to sit on his ass anymore. And he's just super intimidating. And he's like, oh, well, we'll make this quick, I promise. Just, I'm not in the mood for revenge or vindictive behavior. Like I don't have time for it. So like tell me what you know and we'll make this quick. And I thought he meant, we'll let him go. He's like, okay, thank you. And he just goes, he's like, it's over. It's over now. It's okay. It's all over. And he's like casually talking to Donegal as he's pissing blood out of his throat. And I'm like, this guy, he's a cold, collected, absolute sick fuck. But it sets up a really interesting villain dynamic, I think, in this one. And he's like the typical mob boss, which fits perfect in this type of series. And I just wonder if they go more at this route of the true violence type of thing, because I know this isn't, it's not directly linked to the canon Marvel universe. And this was a Sony character that we got to see that is brought to life now again on Prime Video. So you can expect them to take different swings, like bigger swings, even when it comes to different action sequences and the violence. But I do wonder, because I feel like that ups the stakes. I don't know about you, like how you feel about this, but I think it ups the stakes in the drama when you see that the villain physically kills someone. I think that's what made Lex Luthor so effective in the Superman movie, was that we physically saw him kill an innocent man. And we haven't seen that shit in superhero movies, really. They don't show things that are that shocking. This was that moment in this show for me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it shows that they're not afraid to kill people off. And it shows a level of no restraint from the villain there. And like you mentioned with Superman, when he put a bullet in that guy's head, you were just like, what the fuck, dude?
Not expecting that at all.
It was kind of the same thing. So, yeah, it was really cutthroat from Mad Eye Moody, if you know what I mean.
Mad Eye Moody getting dirty in this one. That's for damn sure. Silvermane. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. So like, what do you think's going on with all these metahumans? Like, where did they come from? And because they're all just popping up out of nowhere throughout this one, and we really see, obviously, Jimmy. We find out in the beginning he lights himself up. Which, funny story, Standard Oil that is shown. That's where they go in Standard Oil. Standard Oil was like they were This takes place in the 1930s, I think 1933, and Standard Oil is the reason for monopoly law in the United States. They're the ones that originally got split because they were a monopoly on the oil industry in 1911 is when they got split up and they got dissolved into other companies. But this is in the 1930s and Standard Oil is still there. And so I was like, is that either a flub by the writers not knowing the timeline, or because like Standard Oil was not around in the 1930s anymore? So I'm like, did they screw up? Or is it like to say, we know that they got dissolved, but this is a different universe and a different world. So like suspend your realism that this is a different universe. So like it was interesting because it makes me wonder. I think they did it. I can't imagine they would fuck up that badly with something that like historically known, that they would put that in there and not realize it. I feel like they did that because they're saying this is not the same universe as the Peter Parker one, which represents our world. That this is something totally different. I don't know. It was just a funny little tidbit.
Yeah, I think so too. It's got to be something like that because I don't know. I don't know. I think that's a big
Yeah.
That's a big plot hole, but at the same time I could see them doing something like that, whereas people are probably going to constantly think this is the same noir Spider-Man as Into the Spider-Verse. So whereas it's not. So maybe that was just like another nod of like, this is its own thing. Or maybe they had copyright issues. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I have
weird.
no idea.
I just saw them. I was like, wait a second, because we learned this in school for like a lot. I don't know if this is probably one not a lot of people remember, but the Standard Oil Company was like the reason why, a big reason why monopoly laws exist in the U.S. So I don't know. I just thought that was funny because it's like this is in 1930s and that's in 1911. It was when it got dissolved, so it shouldn't even have been around. But I don't know. Anyway, so when, like we see Jimmy and he blows up the Standard Oil place and Donald gets thrown back and all that. We see him, but it's interesting because how, in my mind, so if he's a metahuman, how do you get killed so easily? Because like he's like, oh, I warned you, and he like lights himself on fire and he starts walking towards Donegal, and Donegal just panics, shoots him, and then kills him. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, he's a metahuman, he's on fire. Like maybe he would melt the bullets, you would think, but it's weird. So like, does that tell us something about these metahumans though? That they might have powers, but they're not like, because most metahumans, when I think of that, and we see them in other universes, they're ultra strong. So whatever power they have, it still makes them very strong, a lot stronger than normal people. Not just because they have the abilities or what they have, but they actually become stronger. So I'm wondering, is this something that has happened to them without their want? Because several of them express, like Sandman says he doesn't like hurting people, and Jimmy in the beginning is telling Ben to stay away from him. So like they don't want the attention that they're getting. So like I wonder what the hell is going on with them. Because obviously they're not like super, I mean, I guess at least Jimmy wasn't super strong. So like, it's just weird to me. They're popping up all over the place. Like what do you think's going on with all these people? Do you have any hypotheses?
I don't know. It made me think of the Human Torch gone bad. Like,
Yeah.
like he couldn't control his flames and
Yeah.
died because he didn't have to do much for
No.
him to be put down. So I don't
Right.
know. I mean, it makes me think if there are metahumans like that, then we're gonna see a lot more of them come up.
Hmm.
I don't know because I don't think that was really like a villain in the Spider-Man universe that I've seen
Mm-mm.
before. It was
No.
just some random guy that lit himself on fire. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, obviously we probably are if they're just popping up out of nowhere. At first I was thinking it would be another villain or something,
Hmm.
but he didn't last too long. So there
No.
was that.
I mean, he got.
Pussied out. Can't fucking do it.
Oh,
Shit.
he got. He got lit up. And what's funny is like, so you see Donegal empty his clip into him, but then when they show Jimmy's body at the morgue, there's only 3 bullet holes in his chest. So I was like, either Donegal is the worst shot of all time because Jimmy Addison was like 3 feet away from him when he shot at him, or that's a mistake in terms of, like continuity. But because he only had 3 bullet holes in his chest. But I was like, really, you took him out that easy? But I think maybe there's a connection because when they showed his picture, they showed him he was in the military. And anytime they show anything on screen and they linger on it, because in the very beginning, if you remember when Ben is at the bar and he shows that woman at the bar, he's like, what do you think? To try and match it up. And it was an old army photo of Jimmy. And so I think there's some connection there. Because whenever the military is brought into anything, there's some experimental shit probably going on. That's my take on it. I don't know. Haven't seen the other ones yet. That's just my guess, but we'll see where it leads.
That's a good point. They should have had the Fallout Boys soundtrack during that scene. Light 'em up, up,
Oh my God.
fire.
That would have fit so well. That would have fit so. You know what? You bring up a good. I know it's totally unrelated, but it still kind of goes along with something I was thinking. What did you think about some of like the music? Because I felt like when Kat was singing, that music, if that music existed at that time, people's minds would have exploded all over the walls. That was not true 1930s swing music, anything like that. Like, did you feel like there were some moments in the show that kind of pulled you out of that?
Yeah, I would have liked more of a soundtrack from like the 1920s, maybe more like Gatsby style or something like that, like the Great Gatsby movie. But it was good. I like the showpiece of it. I think they nailed that with like the performance of how they looked on stage during that time period. But yeah, you're right, man. I mean, maybe it was time to Scott Pilgrim this shit and just start putting in modern music.
Yeah.
Maybe put some Ariana Grinding in there.
Oh
Got me
yeah,
from
for
side
sure.
to side. Yeah.
You are an
Thank
idiot.
you, next. So grateful for my ex. Yeah. I don't know, but
Anyway, yeah,
Ariana
you're
Grinding would help that.
ridiculous. Yeah, I think
She was in Wicked, man. She might have helped it out. She did star in Wicked.
Yeah, and Wicked. What I don't know what year that was supposed to be based in. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. There were some weird moments. One of them that sticks out to me was I thought it was really funny, but I was like, "There's no fucking way." I think it's Janet pulls out the ultimate 1930s version of a "That's What She Said" when Ben walks into the office all distressed, and he's like, she's like, "Coffee?" And he says, "You got anything harder?" She's like, "That's what I keep asking my husband." I was like, fuck, that's a 1930s. That's what she said. That's what we got right there.
Dude, that was wild. I caught that too. And she poured the liquor in the coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
When she
was
dropped out, I was
wild.
like, no fucking way they were making jokes like that in the 1930s. There's no way.
Dude, in the 1930s, like those shows one, they didn't really have shows. They had like radio shows. But even in the 60s, like the black and white, they were hesitant to even show people in the bed together. They had
Right.
like 2 separate beds and clothing on.
Right.
And now you're throwing out like That's What She Said. You got like some more modern music going on. Next thing you know, you're going to see it's going to be black and I wouldn't be surprised in the next episodes. Black and white. Like people would, well, you already saw it. You saw the fat guy with no clothes on.
Yeah,
So like,
sticking
yeah, man.
stamps all over his belly. Yeah, I just thought that one stuck out. It did, like, there were little subtle things like that where obviously it's not supposed to be super realistic. It's a cartoonish comic book world, but that just took me by total surprise. We're getting that's what she said dick jokes in a noir style show, just fucking batshit. But
And that's a good point, though, too. Like Spider-Man, the character of Spider-Man is generally more lighthearted than other superheroes. Like if you look at DC with Superman, Batman, even if in the Marvel universe, right? In the Marvel universe, even if you look at like Thunderbolts or Winter Soldier, you know, the more darker heroes, you could get away with something like that. But Spider-Man is generally like the lighthearted guy. So it's interesting to see this in a Spider-Man universe as like this rated R style going down, man.
yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just funny that it was hysterical. The joke was very funny because I thought their relationship worked really well. It was she's like the sharp tongued, you know, assistant that you get with a lot of these detective type of stories, and I thought their relationship was really strong and it worked really well together. I think she actually helped push the story along and didn't just exist for the sake of being comedic relief. She kind of felt like she actually offered, I mean, she was a catalyst, a big catalyst in the major conflict of this story, where she's the one who came up with the idea to go and extort Cat. And like basically her idea got Donegal killed, but like we don't need to discuss that. But she actually is an important part of this. Whereas like, you know, in a lot of other stories, you see an assistant, a sidekick like that, and they don't really have a reason other than they're funny and to like give shit to the main character. But I think she actually has a purpose. And she backed him up with Winston when he pulled the gun on him. He's like, oh, speaking of which, that scene infuriated me when Winston's like, cute, real cute, over and over again. He kept saying everything was cute. I was like, dude, I don't know what it was that bothered me so much. It just annoyed the shit out of me. He's like, oh, cute, real cute. And he kept saying cute. And he's like, but what if I plug you? I'm like, so they would drop in really 19. Yeah. They would drop
Plug,
in.
yeah. It's like, what is that? Like?
That's a 19. That was, see, like they have a lot of that in this show. Like
Plug
there's a
something
mixture
up their
of,
ass.
right. I'll plug you. That's what they used to say in like the old mobster movies. And there's a good bit of that in the show, but there's also a lot more modern language in it too, which kind of pulls you out of it a little bit. But yeah, he's like cute, real cute. Ben's like, oh, that suit between you and me. I mean, I know you're not pulling this off yourself. And he's like, so why don't you go back to whoever it is and give me $200? And he's like, cute, real cute. I'm like, oh, that was awful. But they did try and add in some of that type of dialogue, which is the old school dialogue, but it felt a little bit forced in some ways. But overall, I think it was great. It's a great introduction. And I think it's funny because we actually also got a little bit of a Indiana Jones-esque moment for Ben in this episode when he, in the very beginning, is going to chase Jimmy Addison, and he runs out and the bartender comes flying. He's like, oh, sir, you forgot your hat. And they focus on the hat and he's like, oh, thank you. And he puts the hat on. It's a very Indiana Jones noir style of like, you can't have your hero without the iconic hat. And so I kind of caught on to that immediately. I was like, oh, that felt like an homage to Indiana Jones. We need our hero to have this full getup, his full garb. Because right now, he doesn't have the costume. He's not in mask. He's not in his full suit. The hat, the detective suit, and his hat are his costume. That's his mask. So kind of fun. But anyway, like overall, that's all I got for you really on all of this, because I think we touched on just about everything there is to touch on in this episode, because there's a lot. But I know there's a lot to come and there's a lot still to be discussed. It's like, where do we go from here? What happens next? We'll have to wait and see, I guess, or at least everyone who's watched it at home probably already fucking knows, and they're like, we already know what happened. You guys are idiots. But we're taking this slow. We want to savor it. We want to enjoy this because it's something special. It's unique. We have not seen anything like this, and it's the first time we've seen a live-action Spider-Man on TV in like 20 years, maybe more than that. So like, you know, it's something to enjoy, to savor. I don't want to just rip through it like we rip through everything anymore, and just there's just so much quantity. Like I want to enjoy something for once, slow down a little bit. So what final thoughts do you have on this, Chase? Anything you want to add? Anything that we missed, or like what you're looking forward to seeing most play out over the rest of the season?
I thought it was awesome. I was blown away because I wasn't really sure what to expect because this kind of came out of nowhere. And it's on Prime. So it's like,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
weird.
when you think of like series, especially like Marvel, like you think like Disney Plus or really up and coming series like on Apple that are like more drama. Even Netflix with like general stuff or HBO is like the big one. But like Prime, I mean, I think like
Got your
Invincible,
boys
like
on there.
yeah, The Boys just finished The Boys. That was sick. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing more into like Silvermane, what was going on with the stamp guy,
Yeah, I
and
want to know more about Stamp Guy. That's
the
all I care
stamp guy, man. But no, and it's cool to see Nicolas Cage back in action. I think that's what's cool is we're starting to see more of these 90s throwback guys like step back into the spotlight. You got Cage and now we got the phrase, Brendan
Love the
Fraser.
phrase.
So I think it's great stuff. I give this episode, I guess, an A. I would give it an A. The problem is it's hard for me to critique it because there's nothing really to compare this to. It's not
Mhm.
like you can compare, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to the TASM or the new Spider-Mans with Tom Holland. Like its own thing. So I kind of got to learn more about it. You can't really compare it to Into the Spider-Verse. What do you think as far as, do you think ever, maybe not in this season, but ever in this series at all, we're going to get some sort of nod or any cameos or anything to any of the other Spider-Man series, whether it's Tom Holland's, Tobey's, Andrew's, Into the Spider-Verse, anything that's like some sort of nod, whether it's even like a phrase or anything they say. And I'm not talking about just like the typical Spider-Man phrase, like with great power comes great responsibility,
Are you talking
but
about
anything that's an
Brendan phrase?
intentional Brendan phrase. That'd be sick. That'd be a sick crossover. Imagine if you had Spider-Man Noir fighting Imhotep or some
Or like
shit. That would be
Spider-Man
sick.
and George of the Jungle.
That would
Yeah.
be, that's something. That is quite wild.
That would be sick.
But yeah, do you think we're gonna get anything that's like a nod or a cameo or any sort of acknowledgement to any of the other Spider-Mans, considering they're saying that this is its own universe?
No. I think we already got some. I mean, the first lines in the show itself are him talking about someone once asked me if this is what universe this was. And I think that's about the biggest type of nod that you'll get. Other than the fact that this show even exists in the first place. I think its existence and this character are the ultimate nod that like this character existed in Into the Spider-Verse. So now he's getting his own story, even though it's not Peter Parker, like the one that we saw in Into the Spider-Verse, it's Ben Reilly. I think maybe we see this character show up in future stories, but I don't think we're going to get anything like that. Any other nods besides the intro, because it is its own thing. I think, and I think that's great. I don't want it to do that. Quite honestly, everything has been connected for so long. Everything is, you have to do, like we talk about a lot, you got to do so much homework to understand a lot of the modern Marvel movies and stuff. So I think making it its own world, its own universe, and focusing exclusively on this story works extremely well for something like this. And I hope they don't connect it. They don't have to. It's great enough on its own to stand alone. There's a lot you can do with this character and a lot of the storyline. So I don't think they will. I think we've already gotten the nod from the intro of this episode.
Yeah, man. No, for sure. So what are your thoughts on the episode overall? What are you expecting? How would you grade it as a first episode?
So I give it an A as well. I thought it was an excellent intro into this world. I think it's so beautiful. I think thematically it's amazing. I think cinematically it looks incredible. I think they did such a great job with it. It's like I think it's a very interesting way to start this story because it leaves so many things open. So for a first episode, it's great because you're like, okay, I want to know why this person hired them. I want to know, what is the deal with Silvermane? I want to know more about his backstory. I want to know more about why there's metahumans. How do they get their powers? Why are they like trying to run from other people and hide their powers? Like what I want to know what's going on in this entire world. It's very interesting. So I think they did a great job setting it all up. And I am looking forward to, like you, knowing more about Silvermane because he captivated me immediately. And I think he's going to be a really fascinating villain. So he's the one I'm most looking forward to learning more about. Although I do want to know more about why, I'm curious about the difference in Ben's spider sense compared to Peter's, because Ben's spider sense seems to appear when he's like close to finding a solution to a mystery, or he's closer to another clue. A clue. This is a clue. That's a clue in the mystery. I think that just always the Bens finding clues with Nick Cage. So I think that like his spider sense is different than Peter's, because like Peter, when he gets smacked with the car in the beginning, I thought, why wouldn't he be like able to dodge that in the beginning when he gets smacked with Donegal's car door? Because like Peter would be able to dodge that. His sense would sense that. But in this one, it's like the spider sense is telling him something different. So I'm curious to see how that evolves, if it is different at all than what we see with Peter normally. Because I think it's a unique take on it, something different that fits the detective character. And so I'm curious to see where that goes. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to watching. I cannot wait to watch the next episode and get through the rest of this, because it's 8 episodes, so we're going to cover all of them, which is super exciting. But it's going to be a fun ride, and I absolutely loved this first episode, and I'm super looking forward to what they have in store for us for the rest of them. But if you got anything else to add?
No, man, I'm stoked for the rest of the series. Looking forward to it. Like you said, we'll take our time, so of course I'm sure there's going to be some side quest in there in the middle, but just like Chainsaw, really enjoy the moments and see what the Cage has got. We've already seen the phrase. Now we're about to see the Cage. Yeah.
Tell me you wouldn't want to watch a George of the Jungle and Spider-Man in Wakanda. Tell me you wouldn't want to see that. Oh, come on, son. But anyway, that'll do it for us here. So thanks for tuning in for this episode of Talk Fantasy to Me, a Riddikulus Productions podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to like and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Riddikulus Productions for show updates and more content. Talk to you next time.